Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja Ki Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivagacharya Svatara Shishmani Sivangre Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Prabhupada Krishna Caitanya Caritamrta Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamatunda Radha Tunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Yamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Gaur Pramanande All glory to the Son of Glory, all glory to the Son of Glory, all glory to the Son of Glory, all glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga, all glory to Shri Prabhupada.
Very nice verse, very nice actually. It's 20 almost verses, 16 verses, with a very, very important part, with a very big point from Caitanya Caritamrta. So let's pray to be able to say something. Jaya 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 Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So, we are reading from Caitanya Caritamrta, Antya. That's the final part of Caitanya Caritamrta, and things are getting more dense. We are reading from the chapter which is called Sanatana Goswami Visits the Lord. And just to give a little bit of a context, what's happening here, Sanatana Goswami harbored the idea to commit suicide. So it's not just that it happens in the modern age that somebody thinks of a suicide, it was also happening at that time. And the reason why he was thinking about something like that was when he was coming to Jagannath Puri to visit Lord Chaitanya. He actually got some disease on his body, on his skin, and because of that disease, the pus was coming out from many sores on his body, and he felt like this is really too much. Like, I cannot do any service. If any devotee touches me or sees me, I will completely contaminate that person. And moreover, he had also other reasons why he felt this way. You want to share maybe? No. Okay. He was also, as we know from his life, Sanatana Goswami, actually he was born in a devotee family, and he was a big devotee from since always. He's one of the eternal associates of Radha and Krishna, Radha Manjari. And he was born in a Hindu family, in a pious family, and he and two of his brothers, they became devotees. And then later on, because they were so beloved amongst Hindus, the Muslim ruler of that time, he thought, let me get them to my service, then I will also be able to spread more my influence. People will follow them, so it will be easier for me to, you shoot for the big shots. He wanted to have them on his side. So, and why they accepted it? Because he threatened that he will disturb devotees, he will kill them, he will do many bad things, and they actually did it. They accepted the service, just not because of themselves, but because of the community of devotees which they wanted to protect from the Shah, who was threatening in that way. So by that act, they were considered impure by the Hindu community, because they were now in a Muslim government. And also Muslims weren't really happy because they were Hindus. So they were kind of a little bit outcasted in a way. But they did really well, he and his brother, who will later on they would become Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. And he had the deep feelings of humility because of this circumstances of his life, how the things went. And so he was thinking about this, so I'm really impure, my body is impure. And when he was visiting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of great love, he would hug him, and all the pus and stuff would go to Lord's body, which was quite. Can you imagine your guru comes? Maybe ladies cannot relate, but men can. Your guru comes and wants to hug you, and you have a big sore on your neck, and it smears over the body, and where you feel like really, no, don't touch me. So that's how he felt, like, my body is completely useless, I don't know what I will do. And he wanted to commit suicide by throwing himself in front of the cart of Lord Jagannath in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he found a little bit more sophisticated way to commit suicide than to just jump from the building or some boring way. He made the perfect plan. And now we are just in the middle of conversation when Sanatana Goswami was staying at the place of Haridas Thakur, and Lord Chaitanya would come to visit. He said he respected the decision of Sanatana Goswami, who didn't want even to go to see Lord Jagannath into the temple because he felt so impure. Like if a pujari just on the way touches me, I will ruin the whole offering of that pujari to the Lord. So he didn't want to go, and Lord Chaitanya respected that, but he would come each day to visit. And now we are in the middle of a conversation where Lord Chaitanya, actually, he never said it out loud, but Lord Chaitanya, of course, being the super soul, everybody's hearts, he knew what he was thinking about. So he was telling him how foolish the idea was to commit the suicide. So Lord Chaitanya, previously, a few verses before, he was saying, "Your body is my property. You have already surrendered unto me. Therefore, you no longer have any claim to your body. Why should you want to destroy another's property? Can you consider what is right and wrong? Your body is my principal instrument for executing many necessary functions. By your body, I shall carry out many tasks." So, Lord Chaitanya just started to preach to Sanatana Goswami to not really do what he wanted to do. You want to come in? Maybe it's on the way. So we are coming to our verse here, and we will now read 16 verses, and we will come to the verse which has a purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's very interesting. Please pay attention and try to see what is the main point of what we are going to read. So we have the last verse actually written here. So I will just read until we get to this verse, then we will read together. So Lord Chaitanya says, "By the order of my mother, I am sitting here in Jagannath Puri. Therefore, I cannot go to Mathura Vrindavan to teach people how to live there according to religious principles. I have to do all this work through your body, but you want to give it up. How can I tolerate this?" Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying in Jagannath Puri, and he said, "I cannot go. I want to do it through you, through your body, so you cannot just destroy the body." At that time, Sanatana Goswami said to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. No one can understand the deep ideas you plant within your heart. A wooden doll chants and dances according to the direction of a magician, but does not know how he is dancing and singing." So Sanatana Goswami didn't really know what was the plan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He just wanted to be with the Lord. He visited him, and now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "I want you to do this, this, this," and he was like, "Okay, I didn't know." But he says, "I'm just a doll in your hands." And as the doll doesn't know what the magician is doing, he just dances and sings. "My dear Lord, as you cause one to dance, he dances accordingly. But how he dances and who is causing him to dance, he does not know." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said to Haridas Thakur, "My dear Haridas, please hear me. This gentleman wants to destroy another's property." He's thinking of the body of Sanatana Goswami. "One who is entrusted with another's property does not distribute it or use it for his own purposes. Therefore, tell him not to do such an unlawful thing." Haridas Thakur replied, "We are falsely proud of our capabilities. Actually, we cannot understand your deep intentions." "Unless you inform us, we cannot understand what your purpose is or what you want to do through whom. My dear sir, since you, a great personality, have accepted Sanatana Goswami, he is greatly fortunate. No one can be as fortunate as he." Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced both Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami, again embraced with a source, and then got up and left to perform his noon duties. "My dear Sanatana," Haridas Thakur said, embracing him, again embraced, "no one can find the limits of your good fortune. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has accepted your body as his own property. Therefore, no one can equal you in good fortune. What Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cannot do with his personal body, he wants to do through you, and he wants to do it in Mathura. Whatever the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants us to do will successfully be accomplished. This is your great fortune. That is my mature opinion. I can understand from the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he wants you to write books about the conclusive decision of devotional service and about the regulative principles ascertained from the revealed scriptures. And then we come to the verse here. Amarai deha pravura karyana lagila bharata bhumita janmi edeha vyarta haila. So, we can, I actually don't know what's the proper tune to this one. Does somebody know? So we can read word by word. Amara, my, this, Deha, body, Prabhura, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Karya, in the service, Nalagila, could not be used, Bharata Bhumite, in the land of India, Janmi, taking birth, Eideha, this body, Yartakhaila, has become useless. So translation, my body could not be used in the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who is speaking this? Haridas Thakur. Why his body cannot be used? Because he had this skin disease. That's Sanatana Goswami, but this is Haridas Thakur. What?
He was born in a Muslim family.
Yes, he was born in a Muslim family, so his body could not be used. He's now saying to Sanatana Goswami, your body, you are very fortunate, your body can be used. My body could not be used in the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, although it took birth in the land of India, this body has been useless. So we see two Vaishnavas, like Haridas Thakur is speaking, and Sanatana Goswami, they are both like, yeah, no, we are completely useless. We know it's not like that. And we know that Haridas Thakur, who is he, what he did, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually used his body for the very important mission. But these are now two Vaishnavas, two exalted devotees, pure devotees who are speaking like this. And we will now read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. For a further explanation of the importance of Bharata Bhumi, one may refer to Adi Lila 9:41 and also Srimad Bhagavatam 5:19-27. The special feature of a birth in India is that a person born in India becomes automatically God conscious. In every part of India, and especially in the holy places of pilgrimage, even an ordinary uneducated man is inclined toward Krishna consciousness, and as soon as he sees a Krishna conscious person, he offers obeisances. India has many sacred rivers such as the Ganges, Yamuna, Narmada, Kaveri, and Krishna, and simply by bathing in these rivers, people are liberated and become Krishna conscious. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, one who has taken birth in the land of Bharata Bhumi, India, should take full advantage of his birth. He should become completely well-versed in the knowledge of the Vedas and spiritual culture, and should distribute the experience of Krishna consciousness all over the world. People all over the world are madly engaging in sense gratification, and in this way spoiling their human lives, with the risk that in the next life they may become animals or less. Human society should be saved from such a risky civilization and the danger of animalism by awakening to God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness movement has been started for this purpose. Therefore, unbiased men of the highest echelon should study the principles of the Krishna consciousness movement and fully cooperate with this movement to save human society. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, it's a very interesting passage and very interesting purport as well, because it speaks to, I would say, to all of us. We will come to that part. Here in this particular verse and this purpose, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the advantage of being born in Bharatavarsha in India. So, and he also mentions these two verses from another verse from Caitanya Caritamrta and from Srimad Bhagavatam, where the glories of being born in India are being said. So, in this other verse of Adi Lila, Srila Prabhupada says, like, people from India are like normal, general people. Everybody has the knowledge of reincarnation, of karma, they believe in God and so on. So just that fact is already a big thing. Like, I don't know for you, but I was brought up in a theistic family, so for me, God was, I didn't know anything actually. I'm from Bosnia, so there are quite a lot of mosques, and there's this tower from where they are called every day for the prayer. So I would hear that, but I never knew what the guy is doing. He was just yelling on the top of the tower. Really, like, no clue about God. And I don't think any of my friends even knew, like, children would speak probably amongst themselves. So nothing, zero about God, about karma, about reincarnation. But that is in India, according to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know how is it nowadays. Srila Prabhupada also mentions in the purport to this other verse. He says, like, nowadays the government of India is influencing a lot and is promoting some other values which are not traditionally values which are present in what is nowadays called India. But still, like, majority of people still have this in their tradition. It's a common knowledge, like we know how to put the light on, they know that karma is there. And it's a big thing. When you get this whole knowledge, then you act more responsibly, they are a little bit more pious, more careful what you do. And he says, like, even when we speak, Srila Prabhupada says, even when majority of people don't speak English, but when we speak in English and give programs, many people come to listen, no problem. And even if he was saying some fake incarnation of God is speaking, again people come because they have it. It's like a natural. It's in the culture. It's in the culture to be pious, so to say, and to listen to spiritual talks and to some holy people. And as he says, as soon as in this purport, as soon as he sees a Krishna conscious person, he offers obeisances. It's just naturally it's present there. And Prabhupada says in that purport, they merely need to be a little bit more educated in Vedic principles. So he is really putting a big, I would say, also responsibility on those who were born in such conducive environment to really take up Krishna consciousness and really, as he says, therefore, unbiased man should study the principles of Krishna consciousness movement and fully cooperate with this movement to save human society. And the Krishna consciousness movement has been started for this purpose. It's meant to really distribute the Krishna consciousness all over the world. And few verses, maybe some verses before, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually speaks about the principle which goes beyond the bodily, where the body is from. So there is conducive environment in India, but it's not limited to the body which was born in India. It is something which is actually for all of us. It's not only for Indians. And Prabhupada says, this is not only the duty of Indians, but the duty of everyone. And we are very happy that American and European boys and girls are seriously cooperating with this movement. One should know definitely that the best welfare activity for all human society is to awaken man's God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. Therefore, everyone should help this great movement. So, Srila Prabhupada actually took these instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really to heart, and he did exactly that. He took the Krishna consciousness and spread it all over the world. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in connection to this, in this same chapter, just a little bit before. A person born in a low family is not unfit for discharging devotional service to Lord Krishna, nor is one fit to devotional service simply because he is born in an aristocratic family of Brahmanas. Anyone who takes to devotional service is exalted, whereas a non-devotee is always condemned and abominable. Therefore, in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord, there is no consideration of the status of one's family. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always favorable to the humble and meek, but aristocrats, learned scholars, and the wealthy are always proud of their positions. One may be born in a Brahmana family and have all 12 Brahminical qualities, but if in spite of being thus qualified, he is not devoted to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who has a navel shaped like a lotus, he is not as good as a Chandala who has dedicated his mind, words, activities, wealth, and life to the service of the Lord. Simply to take a birth in a Brahmana family or to have Brahminical qualities is not sufficient. One must be a pure devotee of the Lord. So these are actually the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is speaking the universal truth, how the things work in the universe, or we could say our philosophy. Our philosophy is the universal truth. And actually, Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proved this in a very practical way. We mentioned it at the beginning that he engaged Nityananda Goswami, who was born in a Hindu family that went to the service of a Muslim king, and then he left the service, but he was kind of not belonging to any of the two communities. And Haridas Thakur, we also heard of his example. He was born in a Muslim family, and he was engaged by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the service of the Holy Name. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada actually did the same thing. He went outside of the form, which was, even at that time, it was very prominent in the Vaishnava circles, and gave Krishna consciousness to the West, those who were considered born outside of Bharatavarsha, not really fit for taking up the Sanatana Dharma. So why is this important, this whole, we were now just speaking what is the philosophy, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what they did, but how is it relevant? How is it relevant for us, this these instructions which are given here? I would say we are also sometimes bound by the form, and we are not paying so much attention to the essence of Krishna consciousness, so to say. I always remember there was one god sister of mine who was she was born in a body which was from the very very birth. It had many anomalies. It was just some genetic thing, and she could hardly walk. Her heart was very weak. Her lungs didn't work properly, and she was very small by the size of the body, and then eventually she left her body quite young, in her early 40s, because of the body couldn't really grow old in a regular way. And when she left her body, our spiritual master, he was giving a lecture and he was speaking about her, and he said, like, when she approached him and she wanted to become disciple, it was like for him, he didn't know, she asked for instructions, so he didn't know really what to tell to her because her body wasn't really so strong. She couldn't do much, and she lived in some remote village and no devotees and anything, and he didn't know like what can I say now. So he said like, okay, you can try to learn English because her English wasn't so good, and you can try to cultivate flowers for Krishna. And he said like in maybe 1 year or something, he received a letter in a broken English and with some dried flowers, which he actually was planting, and she actually made it for him, and he received this letter, and he said he was so touched by this act of service that it brought him to tears. So I was thinking like, did my service ever get my spiritual master brought him to tears? Like, I doubt. But this simple devotee, actually, she was actually a very glorious devotee. I remember when she would come to Vyasa Puja festivals, because we were all packed in one room, like 20 Madhajis. And because she had this problem with the breathing, she was snoring a lot. And to not wake up other devotees, she would sleep by sitting. She didn't want to disturb others. She would just sit all night, not to lay down. And there were many stories, like when she left body, she was very on the side somewhere, you couldn't really see her. But then when she left the body, many devotees said similar stories of her, how devoted she was, how humble she was, how much she wanted really to serve. She was a little bit limited because of the body, but whatever she could do, she was really doing it with her body. So if we would just stick to the form, her form wasn't really conducive, we could say, but if we go to the essence, her service brought the tears, her spiritual master. So that was really something I always remember in that regard. I always think, will I be ever able to do service as she did? Like really, which will have such an impact. And if we just stick to the form, we cannot really practice Chaitanya Bhakti. We have these, the 3 pillars of Chaitanya Bhakti. One is Namaruchi, having the taste for the chanting of the holy name. Jivadoya, being compassionate to other living beings. And Vaishnava Seva, serving the Vaishnavas. So in this regard, we are connected to this, what was said here in Caitanya Caritamrta. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is really pushing towards Jivadoya in this instance, and Srila Prabhupada also in his purport, he's also speaking about this, because the highest form of compassion or Jivadoya towards other living beings is actually preaching, getting those people closer to Krishna. So if we just stick to the form, then it's very hard. Then we will discriminate, like somebody will be worthy of our compassion and somebody will not be worthy of our compassion, which is not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's principle. What he is saying here is that it doesn't matter if somebody is born in a Brahmana family, if somebody is born in a Chandala family. He even says like, thus if a Chandala, if a Shvapacha or Chandala is a devotee, he delivers not only himself but his entire family as well. And if somebody is born, whereas the Brahmana, who is not a devotee but simply has Brahminical qualifications, cannot purify even himself, what to speak of his family. So it doesn't matter if what is the background, but everybody is fit for the mercy. And if Srila Prabhupada would stick to the form, probably we would not be sitting this morning here. And we wouldn't have Radhadesh temple, nothing would be here if Srila Prabhupada would have too attached to the form. And we were saying that also, mentioning that last time, how Srila Prabhupada actually made a profound influence also on his godbrothers. We were mentioning Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, who said that Srila Prabhupada actually saved him from misconception of bodily designations, because he asked him when he was leaving his body, when Srila Prabhupada was leaving his body, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj came to see him, and he asked can he do something for him, if he can do some service. And he asked him to take prasadam with his disciples. And that is like that's not done. Like you take with those low-born Westerners, that's not something which you do in the traditional society there. And he did, he took the prasadam with them, and he was saying he saved me because he understood that's not like Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj is exalted Vaishnava, but this was just one little point, probably by which he glorified Srila Prabhupada. So when we actually preach, which is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants Sanatana Goswami to do, he doesn't mind that he is outcast. He doesn't mind that Haridas Thakur is born. He doesn't mind that Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family. He wants to engage them in Sanatana Dharma. He wants to engage them in preaching devotional service, which is beyond all of these designations. And also Srila Prabhupada, he's in the same line, he's saying that's why we have this movement to help all the jivas to get closer to Krishna. And if we do that, we actually get connected to this current. And what is actually happening when we preach? If you really put effort in preaching, if you really care about the people that you want to preach to, it really melts your heart. It's something which imagine a parent who is investing a lot of energy and a lot of care. Maybe not many of you are parents here, but you know your parents, which attitude they have towards yourselves. They invested so much energy, so much care, so much sleepless nights, so much everything just to upbring you. And it's natural that I know for my parents, they went beyond their borders so many times just because they love me in a way, in their own way they love me. And they went over, like when I met devotees, when I changed my lifestyle, for them that was really a big shock and something which you don't do. You don't just stop eating meat, like that's unheard of. How can you do that? Like Bosnian cuisine is completely meat and a little bit of potato. And if you stop eating meat, that means you will not have lunch with us. Oh, my family is breaking up. Like, that's like what mothers feel. If you don't eat their food, it's like breaking up the family, the whole thing. And okay, they somehow went over that. Then I wanted to leave my studies. Oh, you leaving your studies? How can you? Oh, you will die. You will this. You will that. Okay, they somehow went over that. Then, oh, you're not getting married when you are 22. Oh my God, you are ruining your life. Oh, you're not having kids still. Oh, all of these things were really like mind popping, like a popcorn. It's just not acceptable. But still, they are still there. They are still somehow. And I've seen over the years they are just this is our border. And then, okay, we go one more step. This is our border. Okay, one more step. And always moving further away the borders. How far they can go just because they care about me. We can go into analysis, caring, not caring, being attached materially, whatever. But we are just now taking this part of really caring. And when you do the preaching, when you actually try to get people connected to Krishna, that doesn't only mean those who don't know anything about Krishna, it also means those who are already devotees, but helping them in any way you can to get them more connected with Krishna. That is something which really does something to our own heart. As a physician who cannot say something to a person who is sick, which that person himself is not practicing, in the same way we cannot also help others in a spiritual way. Like I have a friend, she's a psychologist, and it's a known fact among psychologist, if you get a patient who has the same problem that you have, let it be, I don't know, trauma, of being afraid of heights, let's say, you cannot treat that person because you have the same problem. So if somebody comes and you recognize that that person has the same problem, you have to send him away to somebody else, and you have to say, like, I have the same thing and I cannot really help you. And we know all these stories, like maybe you don't know. You know this story when the mother brought the child to a physician and she said, like, oh, this child eats too many sugar, too many sweets and everything. And he said, okay, come in 7 days. Okay, no problem. And she came again, and then in 7 days said, you should not eat so many sweets. And she was like, why didn't you say that 7 days ago? Like, what's the thing? He said, 7 days ago I was also eating a lot. I was overeating with sugar. So now I quit in these 7 days, so now I can really say it to the child, don't eat. So then it will have the power. So it's the same thing. When we want to share Krishna consciousness with others, we really, it's a fast track. We really have to work on ourselves. We really have to change things in us and to be able to really say something with a conviction, with a strength, with a purity, which will actually influence the people. If we just stick to the form and we just say stuff, it will not have the same influence. It might do something, but it will not be as effective as when we say it from the right place, inside. So I think also many of devotees who spend intensely their time in preaching and maybe in Sankirtan, in some intense service, they have the similar experience where it was fast track. The things were really working and things were changing. It was very dynamic. And it doesn't mean, just as important to notice, it doesn't mean that just these services are preaching. Satsarup Maharaj, in one of his books, he mentions, like, being a pujari can also be a preaching service, because you can decorate the deities and worship the deities in a way that it will be attractive to those who come to take darshan. So practicing Chaitanya Bhakti is possible, or these three pillars of Chaitanya Bhakti is possible in whichever service we do. It's not just limited if we just go and just speak philosophy or whatever. It can be done through any service. And yeah, that's kind of, and also, yeah, when you, I'm now speaking about direct preaching, if you really invest a lot of energy, like a parent, a lot of energy and everything to help somebody, you will not so easily, let something bad happen to that person. And your heart will naturally melt and become soft. It's just a natural thing. Like with the example which I said with my parents, it's natural. And my recent encounters with my parents, I was a little bit surprised. I hope that's what happened, that they became a little bit selfless, like more selfless. And it was really funny the way they communicated. Like, so in the same way, when we do preaching, also this selflessness start to happen. And what is actually after that? Let's go one more layer down. Is something which is mentioned here in these verses which we just read. So Sanatana Goswami said, a wooden doll chants and dances according to the direction of a magician, but does not know how he is dancing and singing. So this is also something which, it's next step in sharing the Krishna consciousness with others, that we potentially can become instruments in Krishna's hands. When we move all this I'm overeating sugar principle, or I have fear of heights, I'm just using the examples which I use, but it can be, of course, it's much more deeper, our own conditionings, our own whatever anarthas we have in our heart. When we are successful in moving that aside, we actually free the space for Krishna to use us as an instrument. And can you remember one example of this? A wooden doll chants and dances according to the direction of a magician, but does not know how he is dancing and singing. Does it?
Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
Prayers.
In his prayers, yes. Srila Prabhupada, when he was coming to the West, he composed Varkina Bhagavata Dharma, this wonderful prayer. And he's also expressing there, I don't know how will I do this. I'm going there and these people are just, can you imagine, the saint from Vrindavan, from, living in Radha Damodar temple, and Prabhupada, from coming from the holy place, coming to the West, coming to the heart of the materialistic society, to America, and he's just like, I don't know how will I do, how will they be able to understand anything? And that's the same thing, like, if we can recognize that we understand or see something more than the person that we want to help or want to share something with them, we might not also know how to do it, how to help the person. And Srila Prabhupada said, like, I don't know how to do it, but if it's your desire, please make me dance, or please make me dance. And that's also something which is open for us. We can also pray for the same thing. We can also come into such a state of the consciousness to somehow be used as an instrument. And do you remember, more like Srila Prabhupada's most recent example, but do you remember more? Something from Bhagavad Gita also, when Arjuna is also putting the same doubt in front of Krishna, and Krishna says, like, everything has already been arranged by me. You can only be the nimitta matram. You can just be the instrument in my hands and just do it, what is needed to be done. And also there is wonderful verse which Mother Jayapadra, actually last time she gave me this verse, and it's a beautiful verse from the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Brahma is praying for the creative energy and he wants to build the universe. And Krishna tells him, like, "O Brahma, the prayers that you have chanted praising the glories of my transcendental activities, the penances you have undertaken to understand me, and your firm faith in me, all these are to be considered my causeless mercy." Krishna himself says. And the Srila Prabhupada gives a beautiful purport. He says, when a living entity desires to serve the Lord in transcendental loving service, the Lord helps the devotee in so many ways as the Chaitya Guru, or the spiritual master within, and thus the devotee can perform many wonderful activities beyond material estimation. By the mercy of the Lord, even a layman can compose prayers of the highest spiritual perfection. Such spiritual perfection is not limited by material qualifications. This is again the same point which we were just reading in Caitanya Caritamrta, but now it's going really into construction behind it, like a universal truth, how it's working. Such spiritual perfection is not limited by material qualifications, but is developed by dint of one's sincere endeavor to render transcendental service. And now comes the sentence. Voluntary endeavor is the only qualification for spiritual perfection. So, again, voluntary endeavor is the only qualification for spiritual perfection. Material acquisitions of wealth or education are not considered. So, it's so nice. For me, I was a little bit weird, let's say, before I met devotees with all kinds of traumas, I would say, or whatever it was there. And I always thought, like, that life is not fair. People are not fair. You cannot really get your chance. People are this and that and that. And then when I came to Krishna consciousness, it was like, it doesn't, Krishna is fair. He sees whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm thinking, whatever attitude I have. I can have a proper attitude in myself, do my service, and Krishna sees that. That's the important part. It doesn't matter if others don't see it. Krishna is fair. Life can be unfair, but Krishna is fair. So that's the important part. And if I want to do service, it will happen. And somehow by Krishna's blessings, it was really, I think all of you also have this experience when you really want to do something, you really have the proper attitude in your heart, and you have the mercy of the Vaishnava. Somehow it happens. Once I did some small service for my spiritual master, and he was so happy about it, and I really didn't feel like it's me. It was just somehow some crazy arrangement that somehow it was done. And he was like, "Oh, so nice," and I was praising. I was like, "It's not me." And he said, like, "Yes, but through you." And that was really like, "Oh, thank you, Krishna, for using me in this service." And this is a meditation which we can have in all our services, whatever our services are. We can have this. I really want to do this service. Please make me dance. Make me dance. So please make me dance. Whatever is your desire, I just want this for your pleasure, for the pleasure of Krishna. Brahma can construct the universe for the pleasure of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada can spread the movement throughout the world. By these attitudes, we can bring our spiritual master to tears. It's possible. It's just about us. How will we do our service, and are we an instrument? Are we trying to be an instrument, or are we stuck with our own little concepts of right or wrong, or better or lower, or more smart and more intelligent and this and that? I think all these concepts just clot our heart, and we cannot be the conductor of the mercy. I remember what devotees were always saying, I just pray that I don't put obstacles on Krishna's plans. Krishna will do, but I just pray I don't make it hard for Krishna. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say this morning. Are there any comments or questions, critics?
First of all, thank you very much for the interesting presentation class. The topic is very, very interesting, very relevant for us about the importance of birth, and at the same time the super importance of sincerity and conscious effort.
What do you say, the importance of?
The importance of birth.
Birth.
Prabhupada started the whole purpose about India, and he mentioned it many times through his book. But at the same time, the super importance of sincerity and conscious effort. So it seems like it's coming closer to it, because in the past we talked about it in a very distant way, because it's India, born in a Brahmana family, born in India, so we were analyzing like that. But now we're coming much closer to it, because we're having many kids born many kids born in our own communities in the movement, and we see that they might have a lot of facilities because they are born in a particular atmosphere, they follow the principles from birth, so many facilities they get, but ultimately it's their choice if they want to actually be sincere and do an effort, a conscious effort to practice Krishna consciousness. It's not automatic pilot. You cannot become a devotee automatically. You cannot become Brahman automatically. You cannot become pious Indian automatically. There has to be a conscious effort. And I think very nice what you read at the end, and the Prabhupada says that sincerity and that conscious, voluntary effort has to be there. So for those who don't have the pious upbringing or pious birth, it's more difficult, but it's definitely possible. If those elements are there, you can overcome all the difficulties of birth or body or mind and all these things. Well, even if you have a lot of facilities being born in family devotees or India or Brahman or whatever, if those elements are not there, then you will make it. And so for us, it's very important. Because sometimes for example, sometimes we overestimate the importance of taking birth in India, and sometimes we underestimate it. We just have to find the right balance. We should not say, oh, it's not important at all. We should not say, oh, it's so important. That's how Vedic culture kind of got distracted from the Krishna conscious aspect and became very interested in birth and what. And even now, many people say, I'm Brahman, because they're born in a Brahmin family, and that's it. They don't behave like Brahman.
less about it. Okay, it is glorified, the birth in Bharatavarsha, but what the philosophy is, those who are very fortunate, they get born in the pious family or in the family of the wealthy merchants. So that's kind of what is considered a conducive thing. That is not necessarily connected with India. It can be also in the West. As somebody, I have some friends in Krishna consciousness who were really born in a very pious families, and I can see the difference between me and them. It's like for them, God is something very close, something from the childhood. God is here. And for me, it was, I was always, every morning I get up and I'm like, okay, who is Krishna? Who am I? What I'm doing? For a lot of time, I had to really remind myself every morning, every day, like, okay. And still I see a big difference between lower birth and some more conducive birth.
Also, we have to be very careful in our preaching approach, because the tendency is we want to preach to the more easier audiences, because like, you know, Indians, Hindus, they are automatically more easy to preach to. That's why in India, Krishna consciousness is booming, because they preach to their own culture, their own people. So and even in the West, many times we preach to basically preach to Hindus because it's part of their culture. But to preach to those who are born in completely different cultures, it's more difficult, but we should not drop it. There are some religious communities that only preach to those who are astray, but from the community. In other words, they are part of that culture, so they preach to them. They just try to revive. They don't go outside of the culture because they know how difficult it is to change somebody from a different culture, different belief system. So we have to be careful that we don't only focus on people who are Indian or Hindu by birth or influence.
I don't know if I may dare to say, but somehow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave this instruction to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada did it, like, go and preach. And in this other purport that I was mentioning of Srila Prabhupada, he's saying, like, this is a humble contribution of India, and it could be much bigger if more Indians would do that, like accept Krishna consciousness and go out and preach. Like Bharatavarsha or India, it's a 1/7 of the whole world population, but what about the 6 billion other people who can also benefit from Krishna consciousness? So definitely what you are saying, we shouldn't be just limited to that, but go outside. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said it's for everybody, just the proud ones cannot get, but otherwise everybody else can get and should get the mercy.
I also appreciated your point of not being in the way of Krishna's mercy, not standing in the way. I remember this experience I had many times in Sankirtan distribution in the past. That you really feel that you're either in the way or you're used by Krishna. I remember that we had a tendency to look for alternative young people to approach instead of old ladies, because it's easier to sell books to them. And I saw a very alternative, spiritual-looking boy, and I went to him and I preached him. I realized afterwards I was very proud of being a devotee and being Sankirtan devotee, etc. And he listened very carefully, and at the end he says, yes, I know Krishna consciousness, I know the books, I love the qualities of the devotees. And I was thinking, yeah, good. He said, but I don't see it in you. And then he walked away. Krishna is so clearly telling you that you're in the way, you know. And another time you see hardly anyone on the street, you're begging, you're praying, you're feeling so humble and low. And then you see an old lady with a grown-up son, both, they'll, not a very positive energy, walking a little bit, And then they walk away with a whole set of Bhagavatam. Just that you think that they walk away with the whole set, they give a good donation for it, and you think, what's happening? So it's
That's a great story.
It's just, you know, no, but you realize that you can either be in the way of Krishna and blocking his mercy, or when you're in a proper consciousness and you're praying, and you know, then things can happen which are materially speaking not logical.
Yeah.
So,
Was that in Holland or in Belgium when you told you?
this, no, it was actually in Belgium. It's double thing. It's the double heaven.
Yeah, Prabhupada says, but thus the devotee can perform many wonderful activities beyond material estimation. But thank you. I will remember this example. Everything is nice, but I don't see it in you.
Yeah, I'm still recovering.
We had a similar experience in our preaching center. You know, we tried really to sophisticate our preaching, and then we started getting people who are really sophisticated and really nice and really mature, and you can see that these people are really high class and already have a lot of some already in them developed qualities and everything and inclinations. We also got once some lady came, and she was actually a daughter of some Srila Prabhupada's disciple who left in a moment. So we were really getting some really very wonderful people, and I started to feel like, oh, I'm just parrot, I'm just repeating. I know less than them. I know the theory, but in practice, I think I could be the same one, also to be told the same thing. Yeah, that's nice, but you. That's true.
Yeah.
Somebody else or something?
So we shouldn't give up, we should wait for the old lady.
Yeah, the mercy is for everybody, and everybody can do it,
Yeah.
provided that the things are in place, and miracles can happen. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Don't touch this. Don't touch it, Manu, fix it. Manu, yesterday Manu fixed it, that's why he said don't touch it.
It's gone now.
This is for inside, and this is for outside.
Yeah.
When we put it.
No, there was some bad connection,
Yeah,
something, you heard
yeah.
this humming sound.
Yeah, no,
No, it's gone now. Let's go.
Anyway, what we can do is